They're trying to distract themselves by going to a sushi buffet and eating. And I'm like, boy, you are eating the wrong kind of sushi right now. Today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of October, and as always I will be doing a bunch of book giveaways because this video is sponsored by my favorite sponsor of all time, Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online service for readers. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers discover books that they love. So every month they go through hundreds of titles and curate the 5 best new releases that you can choose from, and that way you can spend less time researching and more time reading. You can skip any month, any time, and you will not be charged, so it's totally risk-free. I have the books for this month. They include A Little Hope, a contemporary debut that traces the losses, loves, and dreams of a small Connecticut town. The Collective, a thriller novel about a mother who gets revenge. The Family, a historical debut about a decades-long friendship between 2 women bound by the sins of their fathers. How to Marry Keanu Reeves in 90 Days, a romance about 2 friends who go on a road trip to stop the world's most eligible bachelor from getting married. The Keeper of Night, a young adult debut with monsters, magic, and reapers. I actually plan on reading this book tonight after I film this video because I've just been in the mood for a fun adventure story. So if I finish it, I'll definitely be talking about it in next month's wrap-up. They also have some add-on options if you want to add another book. These include 2 books written by celebrities, so there's My Body by Emily Ratajkowski and Will by Will Smith. Giveaway details will be in my description, but if you want these books guaranteed, you can sign up for your first box with my code readwithcindy to get it for $9.99. This is the best price for new hardcover release fiction, so I totally recommend that you go for it if you like any of these choices. So the first book that I read this month was A Lesson in Vengeance. This is a young adult novel about a girl who took a year off from high school after the tragic death of her girlfriend. And the book starts off with her returning to the school, which is an all-girls boarding school that's centuries old, is covered in ivies. It has a very spooky atmosphere to it, very much in the spirit of dark academia, and obviously because it is all girls, we got a lot of gay shit going on. Gay shit and spooky shit because her specific dormitory has been rumored to be haunted by the spirits of 5 students who some say were witches. They all died mysteriously one after another on the campus grounds. Witchcraft is kind of like this open secret in the school because even though the school doesn't talk about it, a lot of the students do. You'll see girls convene in secret rooms and shadowy corners and you wonder, are they lesbians or are they witches? Who's to really say? So now that the main girl is going back to school and trying to move on from the death of her girlfriend, she's trying to leave all this witchcraft, occult bullshit behind and is trying not to dabble into that stuff anymore. But there is this new girl that enters the school who is a 17-year-old prodigy. She got really famous for writing a novel at a young age. And now she's writing a second book that's based on the creepy shit that happened at the school. She asks the main girl to help her on research about those 5 girls slash possible witches that passed away. She pretty much only transferred to that school just so that she can do research on her novel because she's one of those method authors who try to do exactly what the characters are doing so that they can truly understand. And so the main girl is both attracted and intrigued by this author, but also mistrusting of her too because obviously her novel deals with death and murder. So how much of a method author are you gonna be when you're gonna write about a murderer? So it's kind of gay, it's kind of dangerous. It is essentially the perfect recipe for a sapphic dark academia book. This is not the kind of book that I typically pick up. I personally am not super into dark academia. I never got into stories about boarding schools. I picked this up because I wanted to read more young adult that had relationships between women for research. Whoa, I guess I really am a method author too. I was not really into the book in the first half. I think it's because it was really slow. Not that much happened. The main character is also an unreliable narrator, so I'm not really even believing half the shit that she's saying. But in the second half of the story, that was when I started to feel more invested in it because more drama started happening. There was a twist that I enjoyed that I thought helped shake things up a little more. I also surprisingly liked the other girl that the main girl becomes attracted to. I think it's because the main girl is so gloomy gloomy. And then the girl that she's attracted to is just more eccentric and easygoing, and the accent that she has in the audiobook kind of helps as well. I liked the little relationship that started developing from there, but overall I kind of wish that there was more drama and flair to the story that would have put me at the edge of my seat, because for the most part while reading this mystery slash thriller, I was kind of like, like the story felt pretty tame, even though it had so much potential for it to be even juicier. Because of that, I'm gonna go with 3 stars. After that, I read Howl's Moving Castle. This is the book that the Miyazaki film adapted. It follows Sophie, who is the eldest daughter of 3. She's just resigned to having an ordinary life where she just runs a hat shop and every day is the same and nothing really happens from there. But unfortunately, she has pissed off the Wicked Witch of the Waste and curses her to become an old lady. Her only chance of breaking the spell and returning back to normal is going to see the wizard Howl, who is this mysterious, powerful being who lives in this castle in the hills that's always moving around. He's known to be this dangerous wizard who goes around kidnapping young girls and eating their hearts. I have watched the Miyazaki film, but that was so long ago that I barely even remember it. So I tried my best to view it as just like a standalone book. What I like about Sophie is that she's just so resigned to being a boring bitch. Even when she gets cursed to be old, she's so chill about it. She's just like, well, I mean, I guess this makes sense. I already act and dress like an old lady anyway. What was also really cute was seeing Sophie get more demanding and bold and feisty as an old lady. Like for some reason, her personality really shined once she became old compared to when she was like her actual age. And I just find that so relatable as someone who also identifies as an old lady. She really stops giving a shit, and I love that for her. I also love how she just invites herself into the castle without even asking anyone, and she just says that she's gonna stay here. Again, she does not give a fuck. I too want to abandon everything and just be an old lady in a hot guy's castle instead. Howl is definitely so much more ridiculous than he was in the movie, because I feel like in the movie he seemed more suave. In the book, you could tell that he was a fucking idiot the entire time. He has this habit of trying to get all these girls to fall for him and then leaving them when they finally confess their love. I guess this is what he does for fun. And then he has a tantrum early on in the book because he couldn't get a girl to like him. So not only is he a man whore, but he's also a fucking child. He's so lucky that he is hot in the Miyazaki film that everyone knows. Otherwise, I'm not sure if his character would be tolerated in the book. In fact, I'm pretty sure that he's not even that hot in the book based on the covers that I've seen. But because we all know the movie, we get to project that shit onto him and just pretend that he's hot. Movie Howl is basically what he sees himself as. He probably doesn't even look like that or is that charming or smooth, but the movie is how he envisions it in his head, and the book is probably how Sophie actually sees it. And then Sophie is just so done with him the entire book. I would say the strengths of this book were the whimsical atmosphere, the simple charm of Sophie as our protagonist, and the quirkiness of Howl, because he really is a unique character. However, when I got to the second half of the book, this is when I started losing interest just because not much really happened. It very much is a slice of life kind of story where you're kind of just seeing the everyday mundane things that happen, which can be cute, but I think after reading that for hundreds and hundreds of pages, I got kind of tired of it and I wanted something more to happen. Even if there wasn't gonna be any plot, at least give me the romance. Give me something to find juicy. I also realized that if it weren't for me projecting the Miyazaki characters onto the text, I'm not sure if I would enjoy the book as much by itself, because if I truly saw it as a standalone, I feel like I would have judged it more harshly. But because I knew the movie and what the characters looked like, and I knew like the charm of the movie, I was able to kind of bring that over to the book. So because of that, I ended up rating it 3 stars. So to satisfy my romantic needs, the next book that I picked up was The Love Hypothesis. This was a previous book of the month choice, so I did advertise it and I didn't realize until you brought it up in the comments that apparently this was a Reylo fanfic that got published as a book. I'm not into Star Wars, so I don't have any opinion on the Reylo ship. I just read the book as its own story. So the main girl is a grad student studying STEM. Specifically, she is doing some research on pancreatic cancer. Yet somehow she has the time to involve herself in these romantic entanglements because she decides to fake date the main guy. The reason why this is even happening is because she dated one of her friends a while back, but then they broke up and it wasn't like dramatic or anything. She just wasn't into it, he wasn't into it, so it was a very amicable separation. But one of her best friends starts to fall for that guy, and because her best friend wants to follow the girl code, she will not date him because she thinks there might still be something going on between the main girl and that guy. So the main girl formulates a plan where if she can just fake date another dude and convince her friend that she has happily moved on with another man, then her friend will feel more comfortable in dating the other guy. Because that plan totally makes sense. It makes more sense than just sitting down and talking to your friend about it. Instead, we'll just go out of our way to fake date some random dude. And that random dude happens to be a professor at the same grad school. And the only reason why it ended up being the professor is because in the beginning of the book, she is just panicking and kisses the first guy that she sees, and it happened to be him. Again, because that is a plausible thing that happens in real life. You just run around in grad school and just grab a man and kiss him, and now you're fake dating. You know what also definitely happens in real life? That the professor wouldn't report the student and just agree with her to fake date her. There's so many things that like would not fucking make sense, but the fact that it took place in a grad school setting just heightens the absurdity even more, because none of this shit was professional at all. The main girl made me so embarrassed while reading this book. I know that people are capable of being both smart and serious about work while being very juvenile in personality and relationships. Classic example, me right here. But just seeing her do this shit in grad school was just so cringy, because I'm like, girl, just fucking study. It was really distracting for me to read about this professor and a grad student in a romance. Even though they're both consenting adults and they're not professionally involved with each other, she's not his student, they don't work together or anything like that, it was still kind of giving me the ick. I especially cannot imagine talking to a professor so casually the way that the main girl is, and explaining this whole fake dating scenario that she concocted so that her best friend wouldn't feel bad about dating a guy that she used to date. It just made me so embarrassed, because it felt like this was something that you talk about maybe in high school, but not in grad school. Let alone have my first interaction with him be flinging myself onto him and kissing him. I'm like, girl, don't you have a fucking thesis to write or something? And then the biggest cringe to me was the forced PDA scenes. They were so painful. Once she started fake dating the professor because he agreed to go along with it and tells her best friend that they're dating now, the best friend would constantly ask her to do PDA with the professor. Maybe you could argue that the best friend was suspicious about the validity of their relationship, but that's still fucking weird because they're in grad school. For example, in one of the first few chapters, they go to this lecture and the classroom is packed full of students and faculty. And because it's so packed and they have no room to sit at all and they're pretty much like jam-packed in a crowd, the best friend tells the main girl, hey, why don't you sit on your boyfriend's lap? Bitch, what? I was so mortified as I read her sitting on the guy's lap in the fucking classroom in front of everybody. If I ever had to do that, I would crawl in the hole from how embarrassed I am. The other incident that happens is when they go to some beach for some social event at the grad school, and the best friend gives the main girl too much sunscreen, and the main girl's like, what am I gonna do with all this sunscreen? And then the friend is like, why don't you rub sunscreen all over your boyfriend's back in front of everybody at this social event? And then the other incident that happens is when the professor helps move this truck and does this, I guess, admirable thing. And then the best friend turns to the main girl and is like, why don't you give him a kiss since he did such a good thing? It's one thing to have some kind of forced intimacy for the sake of having romantic tension in this book, but it's another thing when there's 3 instances of that back to back, and all 3 instances are only because the best friend is a fucking weirdo who keeps on asking her to do this shit. I'm like, girl, what the fuck is wrong with you? Do you have a voyeurism kink or something? I'm like, what's gonna happen next? Am I gonna flip the page and she's gonna ask the main girl to fuck him on the table in the middle of the classroom? The unprofessionalism isn't just PDA either. There's this one part early on in the book where the main girl ends up having an argument with the professor over text. Because the thing about the guy is that he's known to kind of be like a hard ass. He often will grade his students very critically because he has very high standards. So when they start fake dating, it gets kind of awkward because a lot of her classmates and peers are students of him. And then they get pissed off that they get a bad grade. And then they take it out on her because she's his girlfriend. So this one guy acts like a total brat about it because his project got rejected by the main guy, and he takes it out on her. And instead of telling him off, she texts the professor and tells him he should be a little bit nicer to people and be more considerate of his students' feelings. And he tells her in a very rational way that he's not here to coddle students or be nice to them. He's here to make sure that they give the best quality research that they can so that they can be prepared when they are out in the real world. But then she still keeps going at it, and it's like, well, you still could have been nicer to them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, girl, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you telling him how to do his job and complaining to him when it was the other guy that was acting like a little bitch? And then at the heat of their argument, she texts him, fuck you. And I'm like, bitch, you are acting so embarrassing. I would be less thrown off by the professor and student thing if they acted more professional in school and they didn't cross weird boundaries with this. If I were a classmate and I saw this shit happening between a professor and a student, I would be side-eyeing them so hard. Before I move on and talk about what I liked about the book and how it got better as I read along, I still want to share another thing that I cringed when I first started this book, and it was the size difference. Since this is a Reylo fanfic and the main guy is based on Adam Driver, who is this humongous dude, obviously his height and stature gets pointed out a lot. But oh man, you can really tell that the author loves big men. I do too, but to read it so blatantly spelled out in the book was kind of like, girl. Every time the main guy gets described in the book, he's always described as being humongous and tall and big. Every time he's in a scene, the writing is basically like, Adam is tall. Look at how tall he is. He's so big. I, the main character, am so small. I'm so small and we have a height difference. He could snap me in half before I even blink. Did I mention how big he is and how small I am? He's literally described as engulfing her, like he's the fucking ocean. There's a line where it literally says that he's as tall as Mount Everest, and I'm like, girl, damn. I mean, this is clearly a wish fulfillment story, so go for it, I guess. At this point, his dick is probably like half his height with how often the writing says how big he is. Crush me, Adam. Crush me with your big monster dick. The writing also mentions that he has big fingers. Now, why did it have to mention that? Why did it have to go that far? Why does Adam also have to have sausage fingers? Okay, I've rattled on and on about how cringy the beginning of the book was. I still liked it, okay? I gave it 4 stars, just in case you forgot from all of the ranting of everything else. I started liking the book from chapter 12 onwards because by that point, the story got more interesting. It was doing this thing where the characters started kind of misunderstanding, like they thought the other person liked someone else, and so they had to quietly yearn on their own. I love it when a dude does that. It's all about the yearning. You want to be with them, but you gotta hold yourself back, but then you're also in this fake dating thing, so you gotta pretend that you like them, but it's not really pretend. That's the good shit, not this weird forced PDA stuff. There also started being some developments with this other character that was kind of skeevy. That was just the catalyst for the main guy to get all protective and feral for her, which is another thing that I eat up. His jaw clenches so much that you know his dentist is gonna be concerned for him. They have to share a room later on. She forgets her pajamas, so she has to wear a giant t-shirt from him, and you know that means more jaw clenching and repression. I'm not gonna spoil what exactly happens, but if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about, where something kind of terrible occurs, but you know it basically happens so that he can get all angry. That's the kind of shit I'm talking about. The hurt comfort bullshit that I eat up. And the smut, yeah, that shit was good, because I'm a simple hoe like that. I knew it was coming too, but they kept on postponing it, and I was like, come on, we have all the perfect ingredients here for this nasty little recipe. We got pining, we got hurt and comfort. They're trying to distract themselves by going to a sushi buffet and eating, and I'm like, boy, you are eating the wrong kind of sushi right now. And then the smut happened, and I was very pleased. But then the weird thing was, and this isn't a spoiler by the way, this is just me rambling about some minor detail that isn't actually important but kind of bugged me. So while they're doing it, he finds out that she hasn't had sex since college, and he acts super shocked about it, and he feels like he has to hold back, and he says, oh, I can't do this, you're basically a virgin. And I'm like, no she's not. What the fuck am I then, a fetus? He would have passed out from shock if he found out how long it's been for me. He would have had to go through all the cobwebs just to get down there. And then the next morning when they do round 2 and he's trying to get up there, there's a line that I had to write down because I was like, what the fuck is this? She could hear the wet noises down there from herself and his own cum. And I'm like, girl, this is the next morning. Did you not clean your coochie out? So that was kind of weird, but other than that, I liked the smut. Some other things that I wrote down that I liked that won't be spoilers. Basically, chapter 18, if you read it, you know what I'm talking about. I finished that shit and it made me think, goddamn, I want to fall in love. I want to walk away after doing some selfless act and some hot dude grabs my hand because he doesn't want to let me go. It made me so wistful, and it also made me kind of bummed out because sometimes you read these romance books and then you get sad because you know that all these lovey, tender things are 99% unlikely to happen to you. So I was definitely sighing a lot as I kept on reading these tender moments, but I think that's a good indicator for me to at least give it 4 stars because that's what romance books are going for, right? Some other parts that made me sigh wistfully: when he told her that he would be there for her if she ever needs anything, when something kind of bad happens but he has to leave to go somewhere and he tells her that he's gonna come find her and take care of her. Ooh, that's what I want. I just want to be taken care of, goddammit. And then after the bad thing happening, he apologizes to her repeatedly even though it's not his fault, but he feels like it is because he feels like he should have protected her. That's my fucking jam right there. And then the last book that I read is When Breath Becomes Air. This is a memoir written by a neurosurgeon who gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. The entire book is essentially him grappling with his diagnosis, and the book goes through what it's like for him to be on both sides of the coin, both as a doctor and as a patient, and how that informs this question that he keeps asking, which is what makes life worth living. I'm gonna keep this last book short because I don't actually have many thoughts about it. I ended up rating this 3 stars because even though I typically like memoirs and have given a lot of them 5 stars, this one in particular didn't grip me as much as others have, which is a surprise because I've seen so many people say that they cried while reading this book, but it didn't really hit me as hard. Even though I admired the author's resilience and passion for the world and for his career, I think what kept me from being emotionally involved with the book was the writing. It was a lot of talking and not showing. So he would talk a lot about the meaning and the value of life, but I felt like he didn't really show it that much in the storytelling or lack thereof. What I love about memoirs is when they write it like a story and they have descriptions and let you follow it along with a narrative. And he could have done that several times with various experiences of him going to the doctor or being a doctor or his relationship with his wife. But a lot of it was kind of just him summarizing what happened rather than taking me there. I realized this by the time I got to the end of the book and the wife had to take over for writing it. And I noticed that I liked her conclusion way more than the rest of the book. So it just didn't hit me as hard, but that's okay. So those are all the books that I read for the month. Next month, I'll be reading Ferryman, The Keeper of Night, A Song of Achilles, People We Meet on Vacation, and whatever other books I can fit in. Go ahead and unsubscribe from my channel, and goodbye. You'll be the one to